What if your thoughts matter more than your actions? It sounds unfair at first, maybe even impossible, because human beings live in a world where actions leave evidence and thoughts do not. We are judged by what we say, what we do, what we fail to do, what others can witness and remember. But inner life is different. A person can sit in darkness, say nothing, move nowhere, touch no one, and still be the sight of a storm no one else can see. Resentment can grow there. Desire can grow there. Mercy can grow there too. Entire moral worlds can take shape in silence long before they ever appear in behavior. That is what makes the question so disturbing. If God sees deeper than society sees, then perhaps the real measure of a person begins long before action becomes visible. Perhaps morality starts where secrecy feels absolute. Every human mind is full of thoughts no one else can see. That is one of the strangest facts about being alive. We move through public life carrying entire invisible realities within us. Memories we never confess, fantasies we would never speak aloud, sudden urges, ugly flashes, impossible fears, private tenderness, imagined revenge, quiet prayers, fragments of shame, and moments of compassion that vanish before anyone notices them. The world usually sees only the edited version. But the mind is not edited. It is crowded, unstable, contradictory, and often morally confusing. A person can look calm while carrying rage. They can look strong while carrying despair. They can look decent while fighting darkness they would never dare to describe. This hidden interior is what makes moral life so difficult, because the self we present is never the whole self we inhabit. Anger, jealousy, temptation. Hell names them one by one because some thoughts arrive with a magnetic force that feels older than reason. A person can smile politely while replaying an insult for hours. They can congratulate a friend while secretly aching with envy. They can speak with discipline while a private part of them keeps circling desire, power, resentment, or humiliation. These thoughts are not always chosen at first. Sometimes they rise from instinct, memory, pain, or wounded pride before the conscious self has time to respond. That is part of what makes them dangerous. They feel intimate enough to seem like truth. They whisper that because they are hidden, they are harmless. But hidden things do not stay small just because they stay unseen. Many moral collapses begin long before action. They begin as repeated permission granted to the inner world. Hope, kindness, compassion. Heaven answers with a different list, because not every invisible movement of the soul leans toward destruction. A person can think a merciful thought and never be thanked for it. They can silently forgive someone who never apologizes. They can carry tenderness toward a stranger, patience toward a child, or pity toward someone the world has already judged. Goodness often begins in hidden ways, too. Before generosity becomes action, it may begin as attention. Before sacrifice becomes visible, it may begin as inward willingness. Before a life becomes loving, it may begin as the quiet refusal to let bitterness own the mind. Heaven's presence matters here because she reminds us that the unseen world is not only where corruption starts, it is also where virtue first takes root. And roots, by nature, grow in places the eye cannot reach. But which thoughts define who we are? That is where the question becomes truly uncomfortable. A person looking into a mirror sees a face, not a complete self. Passing thoughts come and go without invitation. Some are impulsive. Some are absurd. Some are dark enough to frighten the person thinking them. So are we defined by what enters the mind, or by what we welcome, repeat, protect, and secretly feed? This distinction matters because human beings are not morally simple. We do not control every thought that appears, but we do, at least sometimes, participate in what happens next. We can entertain, resist, replay, refuse, nurture, redirect. The mirror becomes powerful here because identity is not formed only by what flashes through consciousness, but by the relationship we build with those flashes over time. The self may be less about the first thought and more about the second one that answers it. Many religions teach that intention matters, not only the deed, but the heart behind it. Not only what the hand does, but what the soul is reaching for while the hand moves. A church becomes the right image because sacred traditions have long insisted that morality is deeper than visible behavior. An act of charity can be hollow if done for praise. A restraint can be false if it hides hatred. A polite word can cover contempt. And a silent act of mercy may carry more spiritual weight than a public performance of virtue. That is why intention unsettles moral certainty. It takes behavior, which can be observed, and ties it to inward reality, which can be hidden, mixed, and even partially unknown to the person themselves. Once intention matters, inner life stops being morally neutral. It becomes part of the battlefield. But can a thought already be a sin? That is the question that makes people uneasy, because it seems to reach too far inward. If every dark image, every stray temptation, every involuntary impulse counts as guilt, then the human mind begins to look like a prison where innocence is impossible. Yet, if thoughts never matter until they become actions, then inner corruption is too easy to excuse. A person can rehearse cruelty in private for years and still claim purity because nothing visible has happened yet. The truth may be harder than either extreme. Not every thought is chosen. Not every temptation is consent. Not every mental image is moral identity. But thoughts are not irrelevant either. They can become habits. Habits become desires. Desires begin shaping attention, and attention eventually bends action. Sin, if that word still means anything, may begin not the moment darkness appears, but the moment it is welcomed as home. Or are thoughts just shadows of the mind? Hell smiles because she knows how attractive that answer can be. If thoughts are only shadows, then nothing hidden truly counts. The moral world begins only when behavior becomes visible. Until then, everything can be dismissed as fantasy, chemistry, stress, pressure, instinct, passing weather inside the brain. And there is truth in that defense. Minds are noisy, disturbing things appear without permission. But hell pushes further because she knows how easily just a thought becomes an excuse for intimacy with darkness. Humans rarely fall in a single moment. They drift, they revisit, they indulge, they make room in imagination for what they would condemn in public. The shadow becomes familiar, then comforting, then persuasive. By the time action appears, the inner world has often been preparing the stage for a long time. What if the real battle is invisible? Heaven asks this not as poetry, but as diagnosis. Human beings often imagine morality as something proved in public, where witnesses exist and consequences can be measured. But the deepest conflicts begin where no one applauds and no one sees. In attention, in imagination, in what we secretly return to, in what we refuse to release, in the quiet work of either cleansing or feeding the interior life. That is why so many traditions speak about vigilance of heart, guarding the mind, or purifying intention. Not because the world is unimportant, but because action grows from invisible roots. A person's visible life is often only the final expression of many hidden choices made in silence. The battlefield is invisible not because it is unreal, but because it lies beneath what the world normally mistakes for the whole person, fought not in the world, but within us. A person closing their eyes becomes the perfect image because inner struggle is rarely dramatic from the outside. It looks like silence, stillness, ordinary breathing. Meanwhile, entire wars are unfolding beneath the skin. The war between resentment and mercy, between appetite and discipline, between despair and hope, between self-justification and truth. People often wait for morality to announce itself through large, visible choices, But much of character is formed in these hidden repetitions. What we allow into the mind, what we rehearse, what we reject, what we romanticize, what we refuse to examine. All of it leaves marks. The interior world is not a harmless rehearsal space. It is a workshop where selves are being shaped long before the public story catches up. Perhaps our thoughts shape who we become. Not every random thought, not every passing image, but the patterns we return to, the desires we protect, the stories we tell ourselves in secret, the motives we rehearse until they begin to feel natural. These things do not stay invisible forever. Under a star-filled sky, a person looks small, but the inner world they carry is immense. It may be the most consequential space they will ever inhabit. Thoughts become attitudes. Attitudes become habits. Habits become character. And character eventually becomes destiny in ways that are rarely obvious at the beginning. That is why inner life matters. Not because every stray shadow defines us, but because repeated interior choices slowly teach the soul what to love, what to resist, and what kind of person it is becoming in secret. Long before anyone sees our actions. That may be the most unsettling truth of all. The visible life arrives late. By the time the world sees what we do, much has already been forming inside us for days, months, years. A deed may look sudden from the outside, but the soul usually knows how long the road really was. So perhaps God does care about thoughts, not because he is policing the mind like a tyrant searching for flaws, but because thoughts are where becoming begins. Light appears here not as reward, but as revelation. The hidden world matters because it is the workshop of the self. Long before anyone hears our words, sees our kindness, witnesses our cruelty, or judges our choices, the invisible architecture of the person is already being built. And maybe that is where heaven and hell first start taking shape. See you in the next video, where the questions only get darker.